What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Doctor Who Classic Review. Today we're going to be reviewing the 5th Doctor Peter Davison story, Black Orchid. This is a story from Season 19, the first season of Peter Davison's run, and it's one that I haven't heard a whole lot about. It is a two-part story, the only two-part story in this season. I believe all three of Peter Davison's seasons have a two-part story in them, so this is the first of them, of course, being in Season 19. And yeah, it's one that I haven't heard a whole lot of things about. What I have heard is most people saying it's not that great, but it's only two parts, so at least it doesn't, really drag on or anything. But yeah, it was one that I was interested in looking into. I also heard that it was pretty much a pure historical, which after watching it, yeah, kind of. I don't know if it really is a pure historical, really, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, anyway, let's get started with this one. Starting off by reading the back of the DVD. This is Black Orchid by Terence Dudley. England, 1925. The TARDIS materializes on a quiet railway platform where the Doctor, Tegan, Adric and Nyssa soon discover they are expected at an afternoon cricket match. And when the time travellers are invited to stay at Cranley Hall for a fancy dress ball, it isn't long before they uncover a terrible family secret who is murdering the servants and why. A rare flower may hold the answer. You probably just heard my dog shaking off there, sorry about that. So yeah, a pretty basic plot on the back of the DVD there. It is one pretty small paragraph. There's not a lot going on in this story. It is a very basic story. Even though it's only a two-parter, there's still a decent amount of padding, to be honest. But yeah, it is definitely a different story, that is for sure. But let's get started, as usual, with the cast. Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor. Alright, so Peter Davison in this episode is fine. He is fine. There isn't really a whole lot to say. He has a couple of funny moments, which we'll talk about later, like when he's going through the kind of it's not cave system, it's like he goes through a door and then he's trapped and then he's trying to find his way back to where, back to the actual house again. That whole scene, he has a couple of funny lines in there. Other than that, there's not really a whole lot to say. Peter Davison is fine. Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, once again, fine, doesn't really do anything. I'd say the companions are pretty useless in this episode, with the exception of Nyssa, which is nice to see, and we'll talk about Nyssa now. Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, the best companion in this story. Of course, there's a big thing in this story of there is a doppelganger. Nyssa has a doppelganger called Anne. They're played by the same actress, and that actually gives Nyssa more to do, which is good, because Nyssa, when we had this, 3-companion TARDIS team, Nyssa was always the one that I felt was the least used, the least utilized. So to have her as the main one here is good, but it does mean that, yeah, Adric and Janet Fielding as Tegan Javanka don't really get anything to do. Tegan has some conversations with a guy that she's dancing with. That's about all that she does. Adric spends the whole story eating chicken. That's about it for Adric. There's really not a lot to say with the companions. But yeah, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, definitely the standout companion in this one. Alright, so let's get started on to some points with this episode. Starting off with Nyssa and Adric not knowing what trains are. So their episode starts with the TARDIS landing on a railway platform, railway station, and yeah, the Doctor's like, oh, we're at a railway station, and of course Nyssa knows what a Tegan knows what a railway station is, because she's from Earth. Adric and Nyssa are not from Earth. They don't know what trains are, and they're baffled by the thought of trains, and they think, well, what a silly idea. What is the point of these? It just seems ridiculous. I did quite like that. I thought that was a funny little introduction there, them not knowing what a train is and not really understanding why they are even a thing. The Doctor playing cricket. This is probably the biggest thing about this story, as well as, the whole Nyssa doppelganger thing, of the Doctor actually playing cricket. So, of course, Peter Davison's 5th Doctor, his attire is a very crickety looking, jacket and jumper and stuff. He looks like he plays cricket, and in this episode, he actually does play cricket because he gets mistaken for someone else. They think he's someone else, and yeah, that basically these guys playing cricket were expecting this guy to come along, and they see the Doctor, and they think it's him, and he starts playing cricket, and he does a very good job. I mean, they absolutely own in cricket there. But and the Doctor wins them the game. But I will just mention though, I'm a little bit confused about why, because, you know, the Doctor, when this guy comes up to him and goes, "Oh, are you here to play cricket?" He just says, you know, "Oh, I'm the Doctor." And the guy's like, "Oh, yes, Doctor. All right, we're gonna, you know, you're here to play cricket. Let's go play cricket." And he thinks he's the guy that's supposed to be there for them. But why this guy doesn't, oh, at least unless I'm missing something, he doesn't have the name Doctor. He's not a doctor of any kind. So why does this guy think, "Oh yes, the Doctor, you're the one playing cricket with us"? It was a bit weird. The Doctor hearing someone say "the Master." That was a nice little moment when they get back to the house, and this guy says something about, "Oh, the Master," and the Doctor's like, "The Master? What?" And then it turns out, no, it's not the Master. It's something completely different. It's just the way they said it. But Peter Davison's face when this person says "the Master," he's like, "Oh no, not please not him again." So that's a nice little moment there. Nyssa has a doppelganger, of course. Already talked about this. One of the more interesting parts of this story for sure. And it does play into the plot as well, so that's cool. Sarah Sutton does a good job portraying both characters. At the start, I feel like she differentiates the characters quite well. Anne is quite scared and has quite a posh, kind of London-y sort of voice, whereas, of course, Nyssa is Nyssa. She's brave, she's the way she talks is very alien sounding, you know, very not from Earth. I feel like later on though, she blends them together a bit more, so that's I'm a bit off with that, but otherwise, yeah, it's a good performance. The Doctor trapped, and his funny lines like, "Why does my curiosity always get the better of me, and I should have left after the cricket." I loved those lines, and I loved the editing of that. So the Doctor goes to change his clothes to, you know, for this dress-up party, but I think he like goes off to the toilet or something. Someone then comes in, takes his clothes. He then comes back, goes into this room where the guy who took his clothes came from. The door closes behind him. He is then trapped in this kind of weird back cavey system thing, and it just kind of flicks from him walking around trying to find his way out and saying these funny lines like, "Oh, why does my curiosity always get the better of me?" And then flicking back to, you know, Nyssa and Tegan and all that at the party, and then back to the Doctor again with the line, "Should have left after the cricket," and then it flicks back again. The editing is just really good, and it just makes it a really funny moment. The Doctor accused of trying to kill Anne. So what happened was the Doctor's party costume that he was supposed to be wearing got taken by someone else. That guy who took it then went out, danced with Anne, and then tried to kill Anne. Ended up killing like a butler or something, I don't know what he was, killed him, and then ran off. And then the Doctor comes down the stairs later with that same costume on, and everybody thinks it's him. And so that's an interesting premise there. It's kind of a, oh, whodunit. I mean, this whole episode is kind of a whodunit sort of story. And that was interesting, you know, the Doctor being like, oh, well, his reasoning is not great, I will be honest. He's like, all right, I can prove to you that that it wasn't actually me. All right, how are you going to prove that? And the Doctor's just like, "You've never done anything bad to me, have you? No? Well, there you go then. Why would I want to kill you?" Fair enough, but at the same time, does that not also go for everyone else? Like, it just feels like a bit of a nothing answer, you know? The Indian dies without any real fight. So we haven't talked about this guy yet, but there's this, basically when the Doctor's, you know, trapped, he finds this woman, Mrs., I can't remember what her name was now, I might have it on my page here, Lady Cranley, and this Indian guy, I don't know if he has a name, but he's like a Indian Native American sort of looking guy. But he was apparently from like South Africa. I didn't really understand that. That was a bit weird. He ends up getting killed by the monster, who was the guy that took the Doctor's clothes and tried to kill Anne and kill the butler. He gets killed by the monster. The monster just kind of steps on him really lightly, and it's like the guy didn't even try and fight. He had a key that he stuck between the floorboards, spent all his time doing that instead of just getting up. Like, it is the most ridiculous death I've ever seen, and there's a lot of ridiculous deaths in Doctor Who. The creature is Anne's former lover. So the big reveal is that this creature that killed the butler, that tried to kill Anne, or actually turns out wasn't trying to kill Anne, was just trying to take Anne, was Anne's former lover, and something weird has happened to him, which has something to do with the Black Orchid, and he's basically gone all disfigured, and he's now some strange looking monster who's just trying to take his old girlfriend back. So it's a bit of a meh sort of resolution, I think. And the reason why I said earlier that is this, this is supposed to be a pure historical, but really is it? Because I don't 100% understand what happened with the Black Orchid, but obviously that Black Orchid that's had some effect on this guy. So that in itself is not purely historical. That's something fantastical, it's something weird, otherly, naturally going on. My words are terrible, but you can see what I mean. It doesn't feel pure historically to me, which I mean, it isn't a problem, but at the same time, it's a bit like, is this really a pure historical? So Anne's former lover, called George, falls off a roof, and the episode just kind of ends. So yeah, he takes her to the top of the roof. Okay, there's a really silly moment where the Doctor... So what happens is, George takes Nyssa. He thinks he's taking Anne, but he takes Nyssa up to the roof, and the Doctor's like, oh, what are we going to do? What's he going to do when he knows? Because they figure out that this is the former lover. They figure out that he's not trying to kill Anne, but obviously he's killed the butler. So, what's going on here? What are we going to do? He's like, what will he do once he figures out that this isn't Anne, it's Nyssa? He's probably going to kill her. So what does he then do? He goes up to the roof, and the first thing he says is, that's not Anne. Sorry? You just said, what do we can't let him find out that it's not Anne. And the first thing you say to him is, that isn't Anne. And he just lets her go. So it's like, the tension is just completely gone. And then, yeah, George falls off the roof. He kind of he doesn't get pushed off the roof. What's his name? Lord Cranley, I think that's, or is it one of the other guys? I can't remember. I think it was like the wife, the current husband of Anne, is trying to help him, trying to help George out, and George kind of backs up and falls off the roof and dies in a pretty silly, boring way. And then the episode literally just ends. It's done. It's like, all right, well, we're all good now. We're gonna go back home, and everything is all fine. There is the whole thing, which I haven't even mentioned, of the Doctor getting, accused and then taken by the police, and then the police let the Doctor stop at the police station, and they don't find the TARDIS, and then they do find the TARDIS at the police station, and it just feels really all over the place. Alright, I've actually talked about this episode more than I thought I would for a two-part story, so yeah, a rating for Black Orchid. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Now, although there are plenty of things wrong with this story, the plot itself is pretty bland and basic. There are some pretty significant plot holes and just general things that don't really make sense. And even only being a two-part story, it does still have padding. However, the cricket is padding, but I like the cricket stuff. I do like the whole feel of the murder mystery type of thing. That is quite entertaining. And, having the doppelganger and everything is also pretty cool. And being only a two-parter, it is relatively fun to watch. Even though you can see how many issues this has, it is still fairly fun to watch. And I watched this one, did my notes, and then I actually went back and watched the commentary of it with Peter Davison, Matthew Waterhouse, Sarah Sutton, and Janet Fielding, which was hilarious. I love those guys on the commentaries. So I have actually technically watched it twice. And yeah, it's fine. It's just kind of bang in the middle, 5 out of 10 for me. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.